us knowing, we may be able to tell you what are available from this king today, and I would ask to have him formally speak to the Commissioners listeners.
Long considered one of the more successful players in the Australian wine industry, Brian McGuigan's purchase of the Hungerford Hill operation moves his company to the same place as his reputation, right in the centre of things. The winery is next to the corner where more than 500,000 visitors pass each year when they come to sample the fruits of the hunter. Having begun his own label, McGuigan Brothers, only 8 months ago, after leaving the top job at Wyndham Estate, Mr McGuigan believes this is the ideal site for building up his company.
This will be a comprehensive winery facility. It will crush grapes, it will make wine, mature wine, bottle and package and mature that wine.
Bought from the Penfolds Group, the Hungerford Hill operation has the capacity to produce 1.8 million bottles of wine a year, worth $18 million.
Our plan is that half our wine will be sold in Australia and the other half will be sold internationally.
Mr McGuigan says about $1 million will be poured into the new venture almost immediately, and there are also plans for an entertaining area among the barrels. Penfolds, meanwhile, hasn't lost its taste for hunter operations. The group has retained the rights to the Hungerford Hill name, as well as keeping its interests in Lindemans and Tullocks. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
A male attendant at the Argenton Ampol garage could think of little else as he stared down the broken blade of a serrated kitchen knife yesterday afternoon. The 20-year-old threatening him wore a T-shirt, shorts and sunglasses and made off on foot with a substantial amount of cash. Such robberies have become all too common. Service station operators have had enough.
It seems to be happening nightly. We're getting cases just in Ampol of a couple a week. I mean, just in the last week we've had incidences at both Rutherford and Argenton last night. Yeah.
A trip to a service station may soon be more like a trip to the bank, with electronic surveillance and security systems being installed as standard equipment. Meanwhile, thieves made the most of workshop tools after breaking into a motor body repairers at Broadmeadow overnight. Oxyacetylene equipment, power grinders and cutters were used to open a safe containing cash and papers. While effective in netting the robbers a small amount of money, police described the job as amateurish. After being stopped by the solid safe door and lock, the thieves managed to hack their way through the insulated wall of the strongbox. Andrew Lobb reporting, NBN News. While many go to centres to shop, others come to steal, browsing through the rows of parked cars as if they were there for the taking. Police have noted an alarming increase in the number of cars stolen in the Newcastle district. V8 Commodores and Falcons are regularly targeted by thieves, but now it seems nothing is safe, with joyriders and hot spare parts dealers thought to be responsible for an upsurge in stealings. Police are hoping to enlist extra eyes in the campaign against car thieves, distributing lock it or lose it pamphlets to shoppers.
And that is the aim of it, to get the people to come to us and tell us what they see, no matter how small it may seem. We want them to come across and tell us exactly what they see.
During this month, detectives and highway patrol officers will also be conducting a crackdown on car thieves, including those who dispose of vehicles for insurance fraud.
We are going to have police out investigating. We are also going to have covert operations where police in plain clothes will be watching car parks and all the black spots where we are having cars stolen from.
Victorian golfer Tony Collier hit a 3-under par yesterday in windy conditions, but his skills were really tested today. Leading Hunter player Charlestown's Mark Rainey had the right surname but dropped 3 shots. The Newcastle course was soaked in the downpour and scores suffered. Player after player returned to the clubhouse worse for wear. The initial field of 140 will be cut to just 60 tomorrow, with the final day's play on Sunday. And Delando Crescent Welfare Group took possession of a brand new people mover today, thanks to the Hunter Golf professionals. Vaughan Douglas from NIB, Cole Johnston and Tony Mangan of the Hunter Pros handed over the keys to the new vehicle.
And we're eternally grateful for the wonderful work they've done in providing this for us. Enables our young people to be shifted around the community on the various works they have to do, and also the transport to and from their homes.
In 5 years, the Hunter Golf Pros and their once-a-year charity day have raised in excess of $100,000 for various groups.
It's nice to be able to help people who really need help, and we're very fortunate. I think we should keep in mind too the golfers of the Hunter area that help us and come along and support our days. I mean, we can organise them and run them and what have you, but without the golfers of their districts, we couldn't be the success that it has been.
For many of us, the country represents fun and wide open spaces. We're here at Alcaringa, a holiday farm stay place just near Narrabri. But for some people, the country represents loneliness and isolation. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Here in Narrabri, there's a very important service happening. It's called Citizen Advocacy, and we're about to find out about it now. Come on, Nell, off we go. Established here 10 years ago, Citizen Advocacy is about everyday Australians helping others to improve their life. A dedicated set of people are working to change attitudes towards the intellectually disabled and discovering a new understanding along the way. Coordinator Mark Cooper believes citizen advocacy is the key to changing the way we learn about and accept others.
Citizen Advocacy is a community-based organisation that's trying to promote the rights of people with intellectual disability, and our program especially is trying to promote the rights of people with intellectual disability living in country areas. We try to find a person from the community who would be interested in becoming that person's advocate. We look at the person with a disability and we try to match up some of their interests and hobbies and qualities of life that are compatible with the person who is interested in becoming their advocate.
Right, and while that person forms obviously a friendship, it's also a little bit more than a friendship, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Citizen advocacy isn't just about friends. It goes a lot further than that. An advocate can be a spokesperson. An advocate could be a defender. An advocate could even go so far as becoming the person's legal guardian in the court of law, and it can become quite formal, so it's not just about friendship. So the more serious issues are really based on the fact that a person who is vulnerable is really being badly abused. For example, a case that comes to mind was a person with a disability in this area was quite badly raped by a group of men in a park one night whilst walking home, and if it hadn't have been for the support he received from an advocate, those people that did that bad thing to the person may never have been reprimanded and justice may never have been served. What citizen advocacy is doing through the actions of advocates is saying to the public that people with a disability have the right to live in the community amongst us, and especially in country towns, we're trying to introduce people with disabilities back into the community who may have been living in institutions for the last 10 or 20 years of their life.
And giving them, I guess, a sense of belonging in the community which they were born into and certainly deserve to live in.
That's right, a lifestyle far superior that they perhaps never imagined that they would be able to live. And especially people in the country towns are seeing now that people with a disability can live in the community, can succeed in achieving things, can succeed in growing and developing.
And also with an advocate they have a friend, which is of course one of the things that we all need.
That's right, sometimes it's a friend for life.
Jocelyn and Linda have that special friendship. As advocate and protege, the pair are a living example of the success of the program. Linda was introduced to Jocelyn 2 years ago. At the time, Linda was moving into a flat of her own after 27 years of living with her parents.
Has your life changed a lot since you've been involved?
Yes, it has, dramatically, I feel, yes. I feel that I've improved a great deal.
What was it that made you want to become an advocate? What interested you in the whole scheme?
I guess a desire to want to dramatically improve the quality of life for a person with a disability. It didn't have to be any particular kind of disability, whether it be physical or intellectual. But when I met Linda through Mark, there was an instant bond, and I knew that Linda and I were it, and we could really make a difference. Even for someone who thinks, I'd really love to get involved but I don't have the time, just think 1 hour, one lunch hour a week is really enough to dramatically change one person's life and give them a stronger feeling of self-worth, and also just that emotional support, the friendship, it works wonders. Thank you for choosing me, and thank you for all the wonderful times we've had together.
I really appreciate the time she's always given me, and her great commitment and her love and her friendship has meant more to me than words can ever say. I'm just totally grateful and very honoured to have her as my friend.
I'll carry the friendship on with me as I would any other normal friendship, and thank you for enriching my life.
Until today, the construction of the F3 freeway has ended abruptly in this field near Minmai. But this morning at a business breakfast, Bob Brown unveiled plans for a new leg growing off the F3 as part of the National Highway Network. The proposed extension will begin near Minmai at George Booth Drive and bypass Kurri Kurri before joining the New England Highway just south of Greta. The federal government will fund a $1.1 million study of the route, which Mr Brown says beats all other options.
There is, for example, a saving in terms of distance of about 8.5 kilometres. There is a saving in terms of cost of about $40 million.
But the extension, which could be underway by 1994, hasn't diverted controversy from the existing freeway and the added pressure it will put on Lenigan's Drive at the end of the F3. Although Lenigan's Drive is being referred to as a temporary link road, Mr Brown concedes that even when the freeway extension is in place, motorists will still use this route for access to the Pacific Highway. The Minister says only 6,000 vehicles will be using Lenigan's Drive daily by the turn of the century, and the road will cope. Not so, say Black Hill residents, who claim 8,000 vehicles are already using the route daily.
There's still going to be a very significant proportion of traffic coming up the F3 which will still want to use Lenigan's Drive as the Pacific Highway.
Established in 1821, Morpeth soon became a thriving town and the only major port north of Sydney.
All of the Hunter Valley, New England and southeast Queensland was settled from this village. Immigrants came from England, Scotland and Ireland directly to Morpeth.
To foster that history, buildings have been restored to their original state. Now Morpeth has become a tourist drawcard, attracting almost 600,000 visitors a year. However, brewing beneath this serene scene is an emotive battle. At issue is about 500 hectares of land adjoining the village. Mr Richards believes to maintain the tone of the town, this land should become a green belt and remain untouched.
If this becomes part of rural, suburban growth or sprawl, it loses that identity and people will no longer come here.
To stop development, the land must be rezoned from rural to an environmental protection buffer. Some landowners believe a little development plus a smaller green belt would be a better alternative.
I'd like to see my son build a house on it and come back to Morpeth.
The land's fate will be decided at tonight's council meeting. Mayor Bob Gee refused to give an on-camera comment about the likely outcome of the vote. However, he did suggest that if the current rezoning remains, there may be a compromise down the track. Mr Richards says if they lose, they'll take their fight to state government. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
You wouldn't expect a coal loading company to be winning prizes for keeping Australia beautiful, but Port Waratah Coal Services has done just that. The Kooragang site is extensively landscaped, the coal stockpiles are watered to suppress dust, and that water is then recycled and reused. In accepting the award, Port Waratah management encouraged other industries to inspect the site and follow its lead. Also on the environment, Newcastle Council has announced a new award system for local industry, the Environment Achievers Award Program.
It is to show the rest of Australia and the world that Newcastle is the best and cleanest industrial city in Australia and probably the cleanest industrial city in the world.
It's a first for local government, and Alderman Frank Rigby says it's time more Newcastle industries and indeed individuals are recognised for their work in keeping the environment clean. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Accredited Training for Youth program, ATY, resulted from the Prime Minister's Youth Summit earlier this year. A total of $767 million has been allocated to assist the country's young unemployed. $4 million will be shared across the Hunter Institute's 14 campuses. The course is being offered to 15 to 19-year-olds on the Commonwealth Employment Services books who've been out of work for more than a year. Program Manager John Donnan believes this course offers a positive opportunity to enter the labour market.
That it's more than simply picking up some people who happen to be registered as unemployed and removing them from the statistics. It's a real opportunity to gain the skills that will enable people to have the greatest possible employment outcomes.
In the past, the government has offered many job market programs. Each month, the Department of Employment, Education and Training reports on its success through this publication. The results are gathered by randomly sampling students who've completed various programs. But according to the CES, the task to discover the exact number of jobs secured is so big, accurate statistics are hard to get.
Large numbers involved. It's an impossible task to check with every individual who goes through one of CES's programs. As to where they are 3 months down the track.
Workers at the Anchorage Resort have been labouring 7 days a week, daylight to dusk, to get the job ready on time.
I think the action on site, as you've probably been had the opportunity to see today, would indicate that things are going firing ahead in all cylinders.
It's been at times frustrating for the developers, with protests initially from Corlett residents against the proposal. Local Aborigines made land rights claims. A major partner has pulled out. Recently, boardwalk rights across the resort's property became an issue. Overall, more than 16 months' work time has been lost, waiting on court decisions.
I think it makes the conclusion and the opening of the facility a much sought after event, and obviously that's the way we're viewing it.
The $30 million complex has 80 rooms and suites, plus the marina holds 90 boats. Its official opening is scheduled for Saturday week. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It was a welcome return to summer for the start of the new Carnival format. With numbers and events getting out of hand in recent years, the Surf Lifesaving Association decided to set up a new system of qualifying for the state championships. Today's carnival at Shelley Beach is the first of 5 major carnivals to be held before the state titles later next year, and it attracted more than 1,000 competitors from across New South Wales. It was a heavy program of events, with the boaties providing some spectacular action. This crew finding life a little difficult on the way back to the beach. The going was a bit easier for the Nobbies crew, leading the field in their heat. The double skis event drew a healthy field in both the open and under-18 sections, but again it took all the skills of the surf to stay afloat. The action wasn't restricted to the water though. The male and female beach sprints attracting plenty of interest. There'll be another carnival at Shelley Beach tomorrow, this time the junior interbranch. It was a carnival atmosphere in the heart of Wallsend as two-wheel madness took over the streets. Even Santa made an appearance, albeit on top of a fire engine instead of a bike. As a warm-up to the main event, a celebrity race was held, even though some of the faces weren't instantly recognisable. And then it was time for the real thing. A 10-lap street circuit race featuring some of the Hunter's best riders. The cyclists weaved their way through the streets, reaching speeds of up to 55 kilometres an hour. Glendale's Craig Chapman finished first, followed by Merryweather's Greg Ireland and Graham Daniels third. There was just one female in the field, Nicole Sutton, who came in 10th.
The federal government initiated the centres to increase Australia's research and development capabilities. The selection of UNE means it has a long-term contract to undertake the work, which translates into big dollars for the university. The grant to develop high-quality wool is worth $2 million annually over the next 7 years.
The impact on our university will be enormous in terms of the research activity, postgraduate student numbers, new staff and so on.
The wool contract is an attempt to get Australian wool at a level above its competitors through genetic research and more efficient production. The university will also try to make Australian meat better and cheaper than its opposition.
I think it means that it confirms our position as the premier rural university in Australia. Considering we've had 3 of the 16 CRCs just announced, being involved with those 3 I think confirms our position as the senior research institution in Australia.
The main aim of the cotton development is to reduce the use and effects of pesticides. Although UNE shares the money with other centres, it still establishes the area as a force in research and development. Research in the 3 areas will begin soon.
We're ready to roll on these projects as soon as the funds become available.
It's a rare sight, politicians from opposing parties joining together to fight the same cause. Liberal State MP Chris Harcher, Labor federal member Frank Walker and Independent Gosford Mayor Robert Bell have vowed to forget party differences and tackle the roads problem on the Central Coast. The trio announced their plans using one of their success stories, the Avoca Drive roundabout, as a backdrop.
We haven't tried to pretend this is a federal or a state or a local project. It's a project which has brought all three of us together to get the best deal for the people of the Central Coast.
After successfully gaining $9 million funding for flood works earlier this year, the group decided to use the same approach for roads and have already drawn up a hit list of improvements.
I think we've got to try and get rid of that 100-kilometre zoning again on the F3, which is an annoyance to everybody.
But despite the arrangement, Mr Walker admits there may be some opposition from within the party ranks.
Well, you know, they're just going to have to learn the reality that we're elected to represent people, and if by working together as a team we're more effective, then that's the way it's going to have to be.
Matthew White, NBN News.
The no smoking policy will be introduced throughout all AMP-owned shopping centres across the country in the new year. The move follows advice from the Health Commission regarding the effects of passive smoking through the centre's air conditioning systems. Other local shopping centres are also considering introducing a similar smoke-free environment. Charlestown Square says the matter is being discussed, although no decision has been made. Jesmond Stockland Mall says some of its eateries have already enforced bans on smoking, but as yet no complete restriction has been introduced. The smoke-free policy at Garden City, where smokers will be asked to take their habit to the comfort of the car park, is believed to be the first of its kind in the region. Centre management refused us access and to talk about the matter, claiming it was a sensitive issue and any official comment would come from AMP. However, management did confirm the smoke-free policy would be enforced on January the 1st. The alleged incident happened on this stretch of road north of Taree. 3 school leavers from the Newcastle area were travelling back from an end-of-year holiday at Byron Bay when a police officer in an unmarked car pulled their vehicle over for speeding. It was then that 18-year-old George Bonero says the officer used brutal force.
Pulled his gun out, held it to my head and said, get out of the car. As soon as I opened the door, he picked me up grabbed me by the hair, dragged me around the back of the car, chucked me to the ground and said, shut up and don't move.
George says he then drove to the Taree police station where he was given this speeding fine. Back at his Belmont North home today, George said he's recovering from the shock and headaches caused by the hair wrenched from his head. His father, Alfredo, plans to lay assault charges, taking the matter to the police commissioner and minister. He says he wants the officer involved dismissed from the force.
I just want that man out of the system. I don't want anybody else treated the same way.
Late this afternoon, District Commander Ian Campbell said he supported the actions of the Sydney-based officer who'd behaved in a manner necessary to stop the driver after the siren and headlights were activated. According to a police report, Benora had been driving in a dangerous manner, climbing to speeds of 170 kilometres an hour. Chief Superintendent Campbell said he's concerned that police are being put in a situation where they have to make an instant decision, whether or not to immobilise a motorist who was driven at excessive speeds. If they don't immediately act, the motorist could accelerate off and cause death or injury to other road users. Taree Police say they've advised the driver of all avenues of complaint. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The Breakers travelled to Melbourne desperate to end their losing streak. Heidelberg, with just one win this season, had similar ideas. The game was full of missed opportunities, both sides failing to capitalise on scoring chances. In the second stanza, the Burgers' luck changed, striker Derek Hunter finding the sweet spot off a corner kick. The goal spurred the home team on, Brian McNichol's shot collecting the upright. But the Breakers fought back. Coach Bruce Stow switched Brad Maloney into the front line and the move paid off, Warren Spink sending the Olympian a well-timed cross. The 1-1 result was enough to satisfy the Breakers, who now play Melbourne CSC at Mitre 10 Stadium on Friday. In other results last night, Sydney Olympic downed Sydney CSC, Melbourne CSC defeated Preston, and Wollongong City beat West Adelaide. More than a dozen Darts Club members turned up at the Workers' Club last night, but it wasn't a social visit. They were hoping to settle a rift that has been raging for some weeks. Before shifting base to Toronto, the Darts Club members had raised more than $600 funds between them, about $20 a head. The Workers' Club claims the money belongs to it, but 37 of the Darts Club members say the money is theirs and they want it back. An effort to resolve the situation proved fruitless. The Workers' president refused to talk to the group as a whole and expelled them from the club. The protesters ripped up their Workers' Club memberships, but the issue remains at a standstill, with the Darts Club members vowing to continue their fight.
Extensions to the Rostogis Merryweather home were approved by Council earlier this year, only to be stopped in September after the Land and Environment Court ruled the approval null and void. The reason? Council had failed to notify all nearby residents of the extensions. A second building application was lodged. It was considered by Council last night, but a decision was deferred upon request by the Rostogis. The Rostogis asked for the deferment after requests from nearby residents for changes to be made to the house plan. The Rostogis are now consulting with architects about the feasibility of these changes. Whatever the outcome, any recommendations won't be considered until February, Council's first scheduled meeting for the new year. The Rastogi family says delays plus court fees have cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars and they may seek compensation from Council. An expensive mistake and one which Council wants to avoid in the future. Harold Stewart says a guideline is being formulated to ensure that all players in the application process are better informed of their rights and procedures involved.
I have a concern that with this notification process, which I think is quite proper and should be carried out, is creating animosity and problems between neighbours.
It's now 1 month since refurbishment began on the Civic Theatre and all is on schedule for completion next August. The $9.2 million redevelopment will make the historic theatre one of the region's grandest showpieces. As yet, no firm plans are set for the opening celebrations. However, the Civic Theatre Committee wants a spectacular festival that will continue for months after the official opening date. The idea is to include as many of the region's amateur and professional arts and entertainment groups in the festivities. Adrian Rhodes is the coordinator of tonight's special meeting at City Hall, where all ideas will be welcomed for consideration.
No fixed decisions will be made tonight. The idea is to collect the ideas, and so that the new manager of the Civic Theatre will be able to then pull those ideas together.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.